Welcome to How They Do That. I'm your host, Scott Waldron, and here is a little preview of what you're going to hear today.
I will walk into the meeting and I have an exercise where I will leave all of my self-preservation in the car. I mean, I have a process on the way to a prospect meeting where I'm shedding my self-preservation. And then you show up at the meeting and it's like, okay, I'm 100% Andrew. Let's go.
Have you ever wondered how they do that when you look at other coaches who have built a successful coaching business? Well, I have, and that's the reason I built this podcast. I want it to be the go-to podcast for coaches at every stage of their journey. I know it can be a struggle. I'm in the trenches with you, building my own coaching business. Whether you're trying to figure out things like how to get that next client, market yourself to the world, maybe get more speaking gigs or write a book, maybe it's building a team, I want this to be the place for you. Are you ready to find out how they did that? Well, I am, so let's go. Andrew Robinson is probably going to exercise your brain just a little bit because that's what he does. Whenever he talks, whenever he shares ideas, whenever he just, sometimes you just look at him and he's just sitting there like thinking. Every time you're talking, he's just sitting there thinking. And what's going on in that brain of his? I don't know. Well, you're going to hear some of it today. And it is all about having a brilliant prospecting conversation, but it's always through the lens of process. He's a process guru. He talks about process. He lives process. And that's just what he does. And that has allowed him to be productive and effective in having the sales conversation. And that's going to be the meat of what we're going to talk about here at the end of the interview. Andrew, he has built a coaching practice. He is a speaker, he's a publisher, he's a writer, and he helps leaders, teams, and in cultures just come alive. Since 2006, he's worked with people like Nike. He's worked with the Portland Trail Blazers. He's worked with the World Athletic Championships. He operates now as a partner inside of Giant, and he has received his master's degree in organizational systems from the University of Oregon and back in 2001. So we are going to dive into this conversation with Andrew. You are going to get so much good stuff out of this, not just application, but you're going to get some just philosophical ideas and thoughts and things that are going to make you go, yes, that. So here we come, Andrew. Mr. Andrew Robinson. So cool to see you.
Always good to see you, Scott.
Always. We need to hang out soon. You shouldn't live so far away. And
I know.
We could maybe do that sometime.
I know. We couldn't. I don't know if we could be a whole lot further away in the continental U.S.
No, I don't think we can. Well, I could live in Florida, but
that's not true.
No thanks. No offense to you Florida people. You are a process master. Yes, you are. You have mastered this whole idea, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Well, we can talk about processes. Yes. Whether or not I've mastered them, we'll leave it up to your listeners.
Maybe you have a process for mastering processes. You probably do.
A meta process. Yes.
You probably do. This is something that, you have talked a lot about inside our community of Giant consultants, but I think every coach consultant in the world needs this. I think people in general need this. And what I want you to talk about is your theory, your thoughts behind process. Has it always been something you've done, or is it something you've adapted over time? Because you're like, hey, I need a process for this. And you're like, the gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it has definitely evolved over time. I went out on my own in 2006 and found out really quickly, as anyone out there will find out, that it's not enough to be good at something. And so I set out on my own to do consulting and found out really fast that is about 7 to 10% of success is being good at something. So I realized that I've got the what down. I've got the giftedness, the insights, the experience, things I can offer. I did not have the how down. So I had to I've spent really the time since then refining, designing processes that I can utilize and leverage that will help me bring what I have to offer to other people, which is, I think, what we all want. So I think every listener probably is sitting there going like, I know that I have so much I can bring, but how do I actually bring it to other people? And that was the burning question for me that inspired the different processes that I've developed.
What is let's dig into a little bit of the pain for a second. What's the problem out there that you're seeing with coaches, consultants that don't have a process?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think it is the tendency, I think, that's universal, and especially when scarcity is just around the corner, to be more self-preservation mindset, scarcity mindset. So then I focus on what I need. And if I'm sitting across from someone that I can actually help and serve, the furthest thing from my mind is how I can help and serve them. What tends to dominate my view is how can they help me? How can they help me pay for, my utilities next month? That level of scarcity can creep in, and I can forget about other people. So the real turning point is when I can set that aside and be squarely focused on the person sitting across from me, and irrespective of how they may help me, I am genuinely trying to understand their points of pain, their needs, and to whatever degree my self-preservation kicks in, it will poison the well. So that I think is the turning point. So on that, let's set up a spectrum. I think that self-preservation side is one end of the spectrum, and ultimately I work to try to be more other focused. I think we could talk about empathy, which I think I don't know if everyone has the same understanding. I think there are probably a wide range of understandings on empathy. And I don't think empathy is a feeling so much as it's a commitment. And I define empathy as my commitment to understand your internal reality, at least as well as you do. So, I mean, Scott, you and I could talk about people that are close to us, and that their ability to go like, how did you, man? Yeah. You're talking and they share and you're like, yeah, no, exactly. That's what I meant. And they actually phrase it better than you. That's what I'm trying to do with prospects is, I ultimately, my goal is by the end of talking to a prospective client, they go away going like, oh my gosh. I mean, I've literally had people say like, that felt like therapy. Like, and they'll actually tell their friends because they got so much value out of that. That's when I know that I have set aside my self-preservation. Now there's no guarantee. I mean, certainly, you can set aside your self-preservation and it not work out, in which case that's actually better for both of you because it's probably not a good fit. And we could talk a lot about that because self-preservation is everyone's a good fit, right? And yet genuine service of other people is, you know what? Not everyone's a good fit for you. And my job is to figure out who is a good fit for me. So that's a whole thread that we could talk about in terms of the process of figuring out who is a good fit for you. So there's a lot there.
We're gonna have 18 more episodes by the time you get done with the ideas of all the things we could talk about. That's what I love about you. Let me go back though to this idea of you have these conversations, these prospecting conversations, and you're digging in. People walk out and go, "Oh my gosh, that felt like therapy."
Mm.
Is there a process that you follow in order to have those conversations?
100%. Yep. that's the turning point, is mindset first. And I will walk into the meeting and I have an exercise where I will leave all of my self-preservation in the car. I mean, I have a process on the way to a prospect meeting where I'm shedding my self-preservation. And then you show up at the meeting and it's like, okay, I'm 100% Andrew, let's go. But yes, I have a very clear process that I go through in that conversation that I think ultimately enables the kind of value that we mine during that hour or whatever. So, yes, absolutely. So there's certain, sort of, if you picture it like a series of locks, and like as in boat locks, and so beginning with ultimately what's not working. So I think I'll tell you where this is most successful is where people can expand their capacity for discomfort, because well, for one thing, I think that is the key to success for what we do, is constantly operating on the outer edge of your comfort zone. So I think I'm constantly trying to push myself to that edge, but that shows up in a prospecting conversation. So my process is meant to unearth discomfort. And if someone's not uncomfortable, if there's something that's not working, then chances are you don't have a lot of value to offer that person. But in order to offer value to that person, you actually need to know what's not working. And so I have a series of questions that I go through, and each one taps deeper and deeper into the discomfort. And so by the end of that first section, we really have tapped into what's not working. And invariably, I'm trying to think of a time when that didn't happen, where they just go, oh yeah, no, that's the problem. Like, I think that's your gift to them. I think if I'm, talking to your listeners, which I am, that your gift to them is that what they thought was their issue isn't actually their issue. And either that issue is different or that issue is more significant, or both. So the series of questions that I go through helps tap into that. But I have to be mindful of myself. And I think probably if there's a next level skill that people can develop and work on, it is that ability to, on the one hand, listen to the person across from them while they're managing their own internal process. Because if I'm tapping into things I'm mining someone else's discomfort, invariably that's going to tap into my own discomfort. If I'm not aware of that, I will try to manage the conversation away from my own discomfort to make myself more comfortable. And in so doing, I've robbed them of the experience. And so on the one hand, Scott, I mean, I could literally type out the questions I ask. That's the what, but it's how you execute on that. So, for example, I was going in with a prospect, and I had another consultant join me who is just starting out, a couple years in, but seasoned person, but just more specifically in terms of leadership, fairly new. And so, she and I walked in, and I said, listen, beforehand, this is going to get uncomfortable, and just be aware of your discomfort and monitor it and manage it. Otherwise, it's going to manage the conversation. And so these series of questions essentially lead people into the depths, right, of where they have not wanted to go for a long time, and really what's caused a lot of the challenges that they're experiencing. So we're going down into these questions. I'm going down into these questions, and she's just sitting there. And I was one question away. And I mean, things were tense, Scott. I mean, it was really awkward. because everything was on the table of what's not been working and what they've been avoiding dealing with. And I was one question away from hitting like the bone. Basically, this is we're going to hit rock bottom here. And she could not handle the discomfort, and essentially waylaid the entire conversation with, basically changing the subject. And it was like, oh my gosh, we were so close. But it just illustrated to me the depth to which we have to really work with ourselves when we're working with people. So I can go through that process. I mean, but that is a critical process, and each of those locks in the series are essential, because I was one question away from switching locks, and I was going to, essentially, okay, let's now shift to what would it be like if you could solve for these kinds of challenges, and eventually we got there, but it was a really interesting illustration of, I think, just how we can try to manage other people out of our own discomfort.
What I hear you saying is that it's not just the process. The process is kind of the the map, the whatever we can follow, but we still have to make sure we put ourselves in check, understand the process is there to serve us and to serve them, put our faith in that, put our faith in ourselves, and beware of that like self-preservation of that. My discomfort is not comfortable and I want to get out of this quickly.
Right.
And so yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, it was a really difficult situation, which is why I warned the person ahead of time. But I had a conversation Friday with someone who's like part of a really high performing team, but knows they can be better. Well, my role is still the same. If I'm truly fighting for them, then I want to get at what's not working. And, that is next level. I think it took me. So why, and this is where, again, the awkwardness, you have to have a high tolerance for discomfort and awkwardness. I was like, so why are we talking? Like, if your team is so great, if things are going so well, go get them. Like, but he stepped right into that. Just like, okay, well, we have other opportunities that we're not capitalizing on. And so then what happens if you don't capitalize on those? Well, this is what happens if we don't capitalize on these in the next year. Okay, so what's the cost of not capitalizing on those? And, we were deep into 7 figures, and you're like, okay, now I can start seeing how I could step in and provide value. So,
okay, can we go there? Can we go through the prospecting, or not the prospecting, but that interview, kind of what your process is in that interview in order to take them through, make sure you're getting what you need out of it and they're getting what they need out of it in order to figure out if this is a good fit,
yeah,
and how we can move forward.
Man, I'm telling you, this is it. This is like, I used to just, I'm not saying that I've arrived by any means. I am constantly refining, but this is where this makes or breaks it, right? And just as an entree into that, Scott, I think anyone that does this work, I can't speak for anyone else. I'm driven by an ethic, and I actually told this person in that call on Friday that I will not work with any situation where I don't feel confident that I can add a multiple in terms of value. Meaning, what you pay me needs to be an investment, not an expense. And that's a deal breaker for me. If I ever sense that I'm an expense to someone, we've lost our mooring. The work that we do needs to be an investment. And this is where consultants get a really bad rap. And in some cases, rightfully so, that are we really adding value? I'm sure there's a Latin phrase that we could come up with, Scott, for like do no harm, like but we need to add value. And so my job through these questions is, what I'm tapping into is, can I add value? And by the end of this conversation Friday, I was like, okay, so this is what I'm hearing. And yes, that's exactly what we do. We can absolutely step in. And I'm always really clear. I can't guarantee anything, but I can absolutely step in. So, I'm pretty clear right up front that I want to be the leader in the conversation, not out of a sense of control, but because I respect that other person's time. And so I will step in and say, I've prepared some questions for you. Typically, people get the most value out of this if we can walk through these questions, and it will help me understand whether or not we are a good fit. And you'll notice right there in that phrase, I'm really wanting this to be a success for them, and part of the success is that we are a good fit for each other. And one of the huge mistakes I see in a lot of consultants is just taking whatever work comes their way, as opposed to having an actual rubric that they use to figure out what is good work. So I'll start with that, and then I'll essentially dial up some awkwardness. To be honest, I'll honestly say something like, so why are we having this conversation? Like, something must have inspired you to reach out. And what I'm looking for there is there any indication? What's their awareness of what's not working for them? And sometimes, depending on the person and the personality, that can take some wrangling. So this is, again, where you have to roll up your sleeves and really be ready to try to chase that. But I'm also operating under the belief that what they present as their problem is probably more of a symptom than a problem. So I've already queued up, additional questions that will help move from the symptom to the problem. So we start with what's not working. And then after that, it's a series of questions to essentially get at why isn't that working and why is that a problem? So why isn't that working for you, and why is that a problem? And this is where I think probably every time I have this conversation, I will say, listen, you're the expert on your industry. I don't know your industry. So I'm looking to you to help me understand what's not working. And why is that a problem? And in an hour-long conversation, I'm drilling down on that for probably 20 to 25 minutes. And then I go even further. So then let's dial that up even more. So what happens if you don't address these issues a year from now? Let's if we schedule a conversation exactly a year from now and we're sitting here and you're still having this problem, what I'm trying to gauge there is urgency. Do they really want to address this? And then ultimately, I want to get in this first stage to what it's costing them. And I want a number, I want a dollar sign. And I understand it's completely speculative, but I want that for a couple of reasons. One is, a dollar sign is what will increase their sense of urgency, and it helps provide some sort of quantitative measure of what's not working. And I remember doing this with someone, and we backed into it. He didn't really know, well, I don't know what it's costing me that my team's underperforming. And I said, well, what, if you could increase your performance, how much do you think you could increase your performance as a team? He's like, well, geez, probably 20%, 30%. I was like, okay, well, let's look at your annual revenue. What was your annual revenue from last year? So we looked at that, and I said, it's not a 1-to-1, but if you were to increase, let's just be conservative. And this is super important. You don't want to exaggerate. I said, let's instead of 30%, let's just say 20%. That math's a little easier. What would you gain financially by increasing performance 20%? And I could hear him. This is a phone call. I could hear him on the other end, just the wheels turning. And all of a sudden, he let out this fairly loud expletive. And I was like, okay, there we go. That's what it's costing you. So he, that's a gift to them. So that's the first thing, is it helps them have a quantitative measure of what it's costing them. But then going back to what I said earlier, the ethical obligation that I have to providing multiples, right, of value. And so let's say some problems costing someone $1 million, just to be simple math, and I need to make sure that whatever they're paying me is going to be a multiple of that. So when we have the conversation about my fee, it's linked directly to the anticipated value. So I did this with a large company, and it was just interesting because the CFO was in the room, and he was able to just on the back of a paper go, okay, so we're paying you that much, but our problem is this much. Yeah, no problem. Let's go. And it gives just a really level playing ground. So I think if people can do that, if your listeners can develop that kind of acumen on walking people through that initial part of the conversation, it will change your business. And I just want to circle back, and then I'm curious to hear what you're thinking, Scott, is, again, this is not about me. This is about them. Whether or not I ever work with the person that I spoke with on Friday, it's about serving him. And part of serving him was having to lead him to some difficult conclusions. And we need to be okay with that. And ultimately that developing that skill changed the trajectory of my business.
Where's the discomfort set in mostly? Like, this other person that was along with you, she changed the subject at what point?
Yeah, so in Myers-Briggs, she's a feeler. In 5 Voices, connector, creative. And what she wants most is relational harmony. And there was disharmony was just palpable. And it essentially just blew her circuit board. And she was like, I need to essentially recalibrate the conversation.
Is it when you kept asking and digging into, so why is that not working? Well, what's the problem with that? Or why is that? I mean, that 20 minutes of digging into that, is that where it was like it broke her brain?
Yeah, exactly. And I keep in mind that I'm kind of opening up valves for awkward discomfort. And in this situation, you have to understand, Scott, that was a rough situation. And I knew it going in. So that's why I warned her. Whereas this call Friday with a high-performing leader with a high-performing team that wants to get better, which is typically the groups I work with, it's different. You're talking about opportunities. Not to say they don't have problems, but what if you don't reach those opportunities? And that can get uncomfortable. If it's not uncomfortable, then I don't know how much they really care about reaching those goals, or I'm just not doing a very good job of highlighting them. So, but yeah, I mean, I think a measure of our effectiveness is, are we really tapping into discomfort? I mean, imagine going, like, you're an athlete, like imagine going to a PT and you like, so I found this new PT and I started going to see her for a hip issue I was having. And I've never been in so much pain in my life. I mean, it was like off the charts, like almost blackout pain at some points because of what she had to do on my hip. And I was like, okay, I'm changing the name of PT that stands for pain threshold, because you like have a way of taking me way beyond my pain threshold. But that's what I'm paying her for, right? I mean, and that's all we're talking about here is people aren't bringing us in to, affirm their, what they're doing. They really do hopefully they do want to change. The question is whether they're willing to put in the effort, but that's a different part of the conversation we can have. So
That is, this is, this is something I think all of us battle with. It is well, how did you do that? Like how
Mm.
the what is like, hey, this series of questions, but how we deliver those questions and how we interpret and feed off of what they give us is where you are going to set yourself apart from everybody else. Anybody can go be good at asking the questions, but how we deliver and how we interpret and how we shape the conversation based on those questions is what's going to set us apart, and you get better with practice.
If we had to end our conversation right now, I would want everyone to listen to what you just said. That's exactly it.
Well, maybe I'll just end it then. Just because. No, I'm not. And
that,
this isn't about me,
that could be
man.
the,
This
that should
isn't
be the
about me.
teaser.
I
Man,
I
that's so
only say
good.
the things because you say the things. So,
But you nailed
it,
it. That is the difference, Scott. Like anyone listening to this right now, that's my question is, do you understand the difference between what and how? One, everyone understands the difference, but do you understand that how you do that is 90+%? I'd much rather have someone fumble the content of the question, but they have the presence in the room. That's what you can't. It's like, boy, it's really hard to teach that. But no, you're exactly right.
that's gold, man. That is gold. And I want everybody to understand that because we all fumble. We all fumble the technical aspects of some of the things we do and whatnot. But if people see us as being for them, if people see us as being vulnerable, if people see us trying and being human and being, it's just, there's a whole level of connection that is so forgiving.
Yep, exactly. And it all comes from that, I think, that initial mindset of, like you've heard me talk about the phrase walk in stupid, and there, other variations of that. But it's like, if I can be the dumbest person in the room, good things happen. But if I walk in and I'm trying to demonstrate, I'm smart or I know what I'm doing, or, it's like, that's like a noxious gas in the room. It's like no one wants to be around me when I'm trying to like prove who I am and my competence or whatever. So, now granted, and, someone out there listening is probably like, well, it ought to help if you are competent. Absolutely. It's just, how do you demonstrate that is really important.
All right, man, we're bringing it home. I want you
Okay.
to, is there a book or a podcast or something we should reference that has brought you a lot of good, or other people that you've spoken to, mentored, or whatever?
I mean, everything from, things like Atomic Habits. I think that would be a lot of people have read that. And I think the reason that's so powerful is that it cuts through a lot of listen, I think we're all vulnerable to inspiration. So you have a lot of people out there that do what we do, that listen to a lot of TED Talks or other podcasts and things like that. And it's like, that's great. And that might get you inspired, but what are you actually going to do? And that's why I find myself pushing a lot of people on is, what's the specific action you're going to take? So Atomic Habits gets at that. I think there are things like, gosh, what's a great book? When I first started out was Michael Port, Book Yourself Solid. I actually like the title. I've never cared for, but it's so good in terms of the practicality. The other one that I've recently read is 10x is easier than 2x, which again, like, this is just a editorial comment. Some of these titles you think like, it sounds really kind of like, at least to me. But it's, gosh, what a great book. It's super deep and actually taps into, I think, the core of what we're trying to do. And so I think those are a few good ones. There are lots of of good ones out there, but those are the ones I consistently think about.
You are a library for sure. I mean, just going in and from personal experience, reading Kierkegaard, which blew my mind. So thanks for that introduction and doing a little book club with you.
Oh, that's right. We did that. I forgot about that.
I think it elevated my whole presence. I think my house was floating during that period of time. So thanks for the insights you shared on that one.
That would rank pretty low. Well, I'd rank pretty low on the how-to.
Yeah,
but
that's for sure.
It gets at who to, and I think ultimately, if there's one takeaway, it's you can learn all the techniques and everything, but it really is your presence in the room. Who are you? And that's what people will be drawn to.
Andrew, what is that last bit of hope, inspiration that you would give somebody who is just starting out, or somebody that has hit some kind of plateau and they're really looking to scale?
Listen, I can't speak for you. I have been there where I'm sitting there going like, what am I doing? And will I ever be able to make a living doing this? And the hope is like, for one, it's out of your control. There's so much out of your control. So the question is, what are you doing to increase the likelihood of success? And my encouragement is to persist. When it seems like what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I feel like I have so much to offer. No one seems to recognize that. How do I get business? My encouragement is to persist, to continue to work through it as long as you have good processes in place. And so that's, if we did another episode, I would talk about the value of analog business development and how personal conversations are the way to develop a business. My philosophy is you either know your next client or someone that knows your next client. And yet so many consultants get so busy distracting themselves with tons of social media, or it's like you literally have your client is like probably in your phone right now. So that's where I get back to the hope, Scott, is like, if I have good processes, if I have disciplines, if I have things that I can just focus on, the rest will take care of itself. And that, listen, I think you and I could share stories of times where you're like, I don't know how we're going to get through this. And all of a sudden it's like, it turns. And so, if there's a takeaway, it's just make sure you have those processes in place that you can fall back to.
Thank you for joining me today on How They Do That. If you found this helpful, please rate the show wherever you listen to podcasts. You see, I help you, you help me. That's how it works. Oh, and please do not keep this to yourself. Share the show with a fellow coach who could also use these insights. Keep exploring, my friends. Never stop asking how'd they do that? Because with every question, you get closer and closer to refining your business and scaling your impact.